And good morning, everybody. We are live. Congratulations. You made it through the week. Another week of fantastic food safety, food quality, amazing products that we all enjoy and consume every single day. But you know very well, if you work in food safety, not a lot of thanks, not a lot of recognition for what you do. But I'm here and Alex is here today to tell you good job. We really appreciate everything that you do, and we are glad that you're doing it. So if you're new to the chat, welcome. Pull up a chair. My name is Brian Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group, and this is the Food Safety Chat Live. And every Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, we live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. And I get to bring on an amazing food safety expert and talk about all things food safety. But you're the star of the show. We are here for you and to answer your questions and to hopefully maybe improve food safety knowledge out there a little bit, because food safety, not a point of competition. The consumers don't care who makes the product. They want to make sure that it's safe. And if they don't think it's safe, they're going to let all of us know that we failed in that aspect. So we do not want that. So as we see here, so people are starting to file in here. One of the things that we have here on the chat we love to do is say hello and make sure that everybody is saying where you are at in the world. I am in Loveland, Colorado, where we're having an absolutely gorgeous November. It's been in the low 60s, so perfect weather for working outside in the yard and just getting all those fall leaves cleaned up and all that fun stuff. And so Maureen is in Prince Edward, so it's windy there today, so hopefully not too bad. Duncan, of course, is over on the other side of the pond, so we're always happy when Duncan joins us. Elena in Denver, nice to see you as well. So Alex, your background looking a little different than the normal background. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in Montreal today. Usually I'm in Prince Edward Island with Maureen, but today I'm at my folks' place. So this is my father's office. I
love it.
Next generation.
It looks like you should have like a pipe, smoking a pipe or something.
Yeah, it's a good den. Like there's a nice little chair there and little table. So plenty of great place to read anyways. So
it looks like one of those, the virtual backgrounds. It looks so perfect.
Maureen told me a story, and she said that apparently you can get a virtual background for like a washroom, so that you can be sitting like this here, and people can be mistaken and think that you're in the wrong place for the meeting. I decided not to do that this morning, Brian, but that would suit very well for one of your dad jokes, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of times people think, my background, they think this is a fake ground, but nope, real background. That's my real desk. So Corey, welcome. Marcia, nice to see you. Tim's in Tennessee. Good. That's a good thing when Tim's not stuck somewhere, because 9 times out of 10, poor Tim is stuck somewhere. Unfortunate. Tasia, good to see you as well. So he's been joining us quite a bit here as well. Fantastic contribution. So our A team is coming in here for the chat we're seeing. So one of the things, if you're new to the chat, hey Ryan, good to see you as well, that we love to do on the chat is join us, everyone, for a drink of your favorite beverage. Cheers. Oh, I like that mug.
Okay.
Very, very good. So, are you ready, Alex?
I'm ready.
It is time. Time for the dad joke. Everybody, buckle up. It is time. What did the asteroid say to the reporter when he asked him a question? No comment.
No comment. Button, Brian. Wow.
If you follow me on LinkedIn, so I'll post, of course, food safety things and in the locals group as well. I also love to post leadership stuff, but you'll also see every now and then that I post astronomy. I love astronomy. I've been fascinated ever since I was a little kid, and going out and looking at Orion and Betelgeuse and all those crazy things out there. It just gives you an appreciation for where we're at in the world. So. Wow, guys, wonderful people coming in here. Awesome. New faces. Mark in Western New York. I lived in Buffalo for 6 years. So hopefully you guys are having a good fall there. So, gosh, we have a ton, Alex, to get in here today. And, of course, if you are new to the chat, Alex Hanley is the founder of Navigate Food Safety, a consulting and training group up in beautiful Canada. And so we're always happy to have. And so, of course, we have our emails here, guys. So and I'm thinking here, Alex, today as well with our conversation, there's going to be a ton of back and forth on this because this is such a contentious topic. And I think it's that way because it's not prescriptive, right? In quality, we want yes, no, good, bad, pass, fail, right? And when you get to management commitment, it's very arbitrary, isn't it?
Well, there's two things. Like before we get into that, like I've seen over the last few weeks, the last few months, things have really, like people have really been more and more active on the chat, and I find that super interesting because it's like there's two of us, but it's really a lot more interesting. The more people, I really love a lot of inputs and conversations. I really like that. One of the big challenges with management commitment, I think, like. So for everybody, my background, I started as a food safety auditor. Well, I started as an organic inspector and then a food safety auditor like 24 years ago. And it used to be that we would have a chance to help people get better with the GMP inspections. But the GMP inspections and the certification audits, they're kind of two different animals. There's same people do them, but they're really, really, really not the same. And with a certification audit, you have a line and you're either good enough or not good enough. You either pass or don't pass. You either are compliant or you get a non-compliance. And it's really difficult to come up with a non-compliance in terms of management commitment. Like that's one of the big challenges. We did some work on KPIs and that's one of the challenges that we're working on right now. Like what would be, because that line can be based on each auditor comes in with their own line. It's got to be the same line for everybody. It's got to be the same line for any type of situation. If you're a mom and pop shop, if you're a 500 employee plant, if you're a company with 100 plants, the same standard needs to apply to everybody. It's really difficult to wrap your mind around what can we call conforming and what can we call non-conforming. And what we were talking about is that it often leads to, well, they're not committed. Like management is not committed, and whether it's true or not, I think the premise that we wanted to explore was, well, like that's pointing fingers, and little shout to Duncan here, and like one of the things that I really appreciated, I had a long chat with Duncan after our last chat, but really one of the things that came out was the idea that there is no overlap between pointing fingers and collaborating. Like pointing fingers kills collaboration. If you think of Venn diagrams, like there would be two circles like that with no overlap. And I think the work that I was looking forward to exploring this morning was really, what's this overlap? How can quality and management come in and collaborate and discuss? Because otherwise we're in echo chambers, and nothing comes out of echo chambers, like nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of comments on that. So number one, if you're an auditor going in and trying to look at management commitment, it's extremely difficult not to venture over into consulting because you want to give advice on how to comply with that, and that's a no-no. And the other side is it's very difficult to go into that closeout meeting and tell that plant that they suck, right? Hey, your management commitment is really, really poor. You're going to leave that room with a lot of upset, angry people at you because they're going to challenge that very highly. And it's not a good approach. I mean, so part of the challenge, and that's what we want to kind of challenge here today, is get people thinking about, is think about in your own life, right? If my wife came to me and said, hey, Brian, you're looking a little pudgy there. I think you need to lose some weight. What are you talking about? No, this is all muscle. No, I see you. This is fat. You
different definition of muscle, but it's all muscle.
Yeah, it's just got a layer of insulation on top. And no, I'm going to start giving you egg whites for breakfast, and I want you to exercise every day. And what am I going to do? Right, I'm going to resist that. I'm going to push back against that because I'm resentful. That's never the right way to approach things, and management commitment in some ways that way.
Well, I find it's very, like, the thing about management commitment, what makes it really difficult is when you're in, like, I believe that quality, you often see quality in one kind of one echo chamber, one paradigm, one way of looking at things. And then you've got management who've got a different paradigm, a different way of looking at things. And to be fair with management, they have to manage food safety and a million other, well, not a million, but a dozen other business imperatives, and they have to kind of not blend, but they have to meet the quality and the food safety imperatives, and they have to weigh that, and of course some of the imperatives is to be a profitable business, because we live in a capitalist society, and it's like it's not that easy to, like, the line is what it's easy to say, well, you're not doing what I want to do, so you're not committed to food safety, or you're not committed to quality. And I think we need a kind of an agreement, like saying, if quality says you're not committed to food safety, we should be able to express that in a way that is where management would agree that they're not committed, and it's a very difficult sell, as opposed to we're not going to ship product that's dangerous. That's a very easy and a very tangible what
No, that's a good point, because I mean, and so a lot of the different, then that's why I kind of was talking kind of about, the check the box type things, yes or no, good or bad. Those are easy. This is a continuum. There's no good management, bad management. It's all on a scale. And I think Cortland is bringing up a good point here, right? You need to be objective, and that's kind of what we're seeing here with Duncan and Tim. And so part of this too, right, is Tim's comment is, people don't like to be told, like me, right? I don't want to be told, hey, you're getting kind of fat there, Brian, by my wife. Hey, right? That's your immediate reaction. And part of that is, to Cortland's point, Alex, is, how do you look at this objectively? So we kind of wanted to start with that point, to list out what are the requirements under one of the standards. It could be any, it doesn't really matter. And the challenge that Alex and I want to put forward for the group for our conversation here today is, you need to get out of your chair and put yourself in the perspective of the plant manager, right? The leadership team in the company, in that location of where you're at. How do you do that, right? That's the challenge. So like in the SQF code, for example, Alex, under 2.1, there's four main things that the auditor should be looking for. Supply safe food. Okay, right? And as we're going through these are very vague, right? Have a food safety culture, right? We've done whole shows on that. Yep. Continuous improvement of food safety. Well, you can show some evidence there for your programs. Comply with regulatory and customer requirements. Okay, that's also a very large bucket. And those are the four kind of criteria under the standard that auditor should be looking for, right, Alex?
Well, they are. But one of the problems, like, if I just take a step back, is it's easy. Okay. Like, when we look at certification audits, one of the big overwhelming or overarching issue is that a lot of times we are ticking boxes. We're just saying, do we have this? Do we have that? Do we have this? Do we have that? Do we have a piece of paper that says you're committed to food safety, legality, quality, customer satisfaction, and all that kind of stuff? And then when the company has that, then we tick the box and we say, okay, that's good. And then, like, most of the time, like, most of the food safety policies that I've seen are written in a very technocratic, very kind of a language that speaks to auditors, but doesn't speak to the people on the floor, doesn't speak to an operator, doesn't speak to a supervisor, doesn't speak to a mechanic or a forklift driver, like somebody at shipping and receiving. And so that, if we look at having something, is one thing, but the auditors are not necessarily looking at the effectiveness of those programs. So it's true at all levels. And management review, like, we talk about management commitment, but every year the facility is supposed to have a management review program, or a management review where they have a critical look at their overall food safety program, and they should be improving their programs. And most of the time, the outputs of that management review are pathetic. Like, I don't know what everybody else sees, but I mean, I've seen enough to see a trend, let's say. Larry's talking about KPIs, and we did a whole webinar on aligning KPIs with risk. Okay, so because when you have a KPI, if your KPI is not aligned with the risk, then you cannot use that KPI to manage a risk. And so if you think of the top 3 KPIs in food safety, they say, I want to have a good score at an audit, I want to have no recall, and I want to reduce customer complaints. Now that is absolutely not aligned with the risk. Let's say you're a meat processor and Listeria is a big deal for your facility. Those 3 KPIs are never going to help you monitor or manage one of your big risks, which is Listeria. So those 3 commitments or those 3 KPIs are not related to food safety, but they're related to food safety certification. They're all kind of helping you manage your certification, not your food safety risks. So that's why management commitment is such a difficult topic in a way. When you look at what we're doing and what we should be doing, there's such a big gap to start with. And because we're ticking boxes, well, we have KPIs with an S, so it's got to be more than 1. So you've got 3, so you're good. And I think that's how we're kind of going sideways between like, this is what we should be doing, and that's what the industry as a whole is doing. Is that?
That's a good point. You got me thinking on that. So let's use that Listeria example as a point. So the auditor comes in and says, okay, well, talk to me about your Listeria program and management of that here in this meat facility. Oh, okay, well, great. We've got this for incoming products. We've got an environmental monitoring program. Have you had hits in your environmental monitoring program for Listeria? Yes, we have. Okay, what did you do? Well, we did these corrective actions and these type of things. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You can argue both sides. It's like, okay, well, it's a bad thing because you found Listeria. Well, no, it's a good thing because we found Listeria, because we're looking
seek and destroy.
It, right?
If you want to seek and destroy, like a Listeria program, that the standards, like the benchmark standards, all say now, or they should all say that if you don't find anything, you've got to reconsider your overall program, because it might be a sign that you're not looking for the problems, that you're just, that you're just faking it in a way. It's easy to not find problems if you're swabbing the area that's easy to clean. If you're not going in the corners, if you're not going where it's, anything smells bad, then seek and destroy. Exactly.
And I think that's part of the problem, right? Because the auditor needs to ask some very pointed follow-up questions relative to that program to determine whether or not there's a commitment there, to your point, Alex, for eradication, identification, and improvement of that process. And that takes time to figure out. Cortland, I think I owe Cortland $5 here, because he is doing an excellent job here bringing us to our main point to the conversation, which is, okay, is this the fault of management or quality? I'm going to say something here, right? People are going to like me, right?
Okay.
This is our fault, right? If as a quality manager, we're going to take kind of the frame here of the plant. And so I'm a quality manager in a plant, and I have a plant management team and things like that. And I go to the plant manager, and I'm like, okay, Alex, yeah, Brian, what can I do for you? Yeah, we're having this quality issue, and you need to fix it. And I point my finger, and then I stomp out of the office, and I'm like, okay, I've done my job as the quality manager. I've informed the plant manager, now he needs to fix it. No, right? It's exactly the same as my wife coming to me and saying, hey, Brian, you're kind of looking a little pudgy there, right? But the plant manager's going to be like, oh, what the hell was that, right? And it's our job to get into their shoes and understand their perspective. And that's what we're talking about here today. So
that's the overlap. That's the overlap we're looking for. Like, where's the communication? Because I think, in that question, is it quality? Is it management? I would say this is still pointing fingers, and it's a great question. It's a great question, but I think it takes us to, it's neither quality nor management. It's together. We need to figure out what is, in this case, what kind of output should we be looking for of that management review? What would work for both quality and management? Where's the, what's that overlap there? And right, Cortland, exactly. What I would say is, it's not even like if I wanted to point fingers, I would say, well, let's start looking at, is that something that's happening at the plant level, or is that a trend that's happening at the industry level? Because what I meant to say was that I've seen it in enough facilities that I don't think it's something that's happening at the plant level. I think it's like that lack of communication, that lack of understanding of what we're looking for is not just quality and management, but the auditor who come over and who tick the box and say that's okay, they're part of the picture. And the technical people at the CB who are saying, oh yeah, that report is all good, there is no, we tick that box also, they're also part of the issue. So I think that's a global, that misunderstanding of what is it that is this effective or not? I mean, Duncan, again, we've had a lot of in that conversation, it was fantastic, but the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the imperative of how critical it is to look at effectiveness, not just at having a program. I'm sure we've talked about, we've talked about that at length. And it's if we're not looking for effectiveness, and that's where I'm getting at, like effective needs to be in that overlap. It's easy to tick boxes and say we've done it. But if we want to be effective, we need to be working together, and that's why.
Yes. And that's the focus of our conversation here today, is getting out of our technical bubble. Well, according to 2.1.1, we need no. All right. Today's purpose is to get outside of that and think about who you want to influence and persuade. And in our example, it's the plant manager. The plant manager holds all the keys. She is the person responsible in that plant. And they need to understand why it's important to you. And I think that's where a big failure occurs, Alex, is that we don't do a good job of that. So step one is get outside of your shoes. Think about, I have incredible respect for plant managers. Think about how difficult their job is. Yeah. Oh my God, right? They have to meet the budget. They have to make the product. They have to manage all their employees. And if it's a union facility, they have to deal with the unions. They have to make sure that everything is safe. They have to make sure that OSHA is happy. They have to make sure that the employees get a good wage. They have to make sure that utilities are being made. They have to get the capital budget approved for the plant next year. On and on and on. The quality group is one small part of the management team. And if you go stomping into their office and they're sitting there going, oh, okay, I can't hire enough people to run the plant, and my turnover rate is too high, and everybody's demanding wages increases for next year, and I'm not going to be able to meet my margins. And you come in complaining about management commitment, they're going to look at you sideways. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? That's like number 20 on my list of shit I have to worry about this week. Why is that important to me? Exactly. Why is that important to them? Right?
Well, I think you have a great example, the example of because when we say management's not committed, I think it's a big catchphrase, and coming up with specific examples of, okay, well, this is okay, or that's not okay. And your example of milk receiving, where okay, it's like 4 degrees in Canada, so it's like 32 or whatever, milk is a little bit hot. When oh, you're accepting milk that's a little bit hot. There's a difference between kind of going from green to red and then kind of defining what that yellow is. And maybe you can share the details of that example, because I think it's a great example of taking one issue specifically. I mean, lots of fantastic comments, but I think it was Tim or Cortland. No, Cortland was saying, are we saying that management, that it's quality's job to teach management? I think it's quality's job to teach management to work it out with management. I think it's not one teaching the other, but to your point, A teaches B, B teaches A, and then you find what are we going to call being safe? What's safe? What does safe mean in our facility? And the example that we talked about, where milk is a little bit warm, how do we address that? I think is a great example of finding a middle ground. So I don't know if you want to go with that, but.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do that here really quickly. So part of this is, and this goes back to Alex, what we were talking about earlier, right? So food safety, easy. It's good or it's bad. There's no in between for food safety. There's no half pregnant. Either you are or you aren't. But with quality, things get a little more confusing, because, and this gets back to the fourth point: are you complying with regulatory and customer requirements under the standard for management commitment? Okay, well, what are the customer requirements? And then figuring those out. The quality side of things is a business decision. Right? And the plant manager is responsible for that. So your job in those situations, to get back to the comment that Cortland was making, is you need to help them understand that. So green, yellow, and red. So the example I use on this would be like milk temperature you were talking about at receiving. So if quality says the milk needs to be 40 degrees F or colder when we receive it, great. Okay, that's the standard. What if the milk comes in at 41? Does that mean the milk is bad? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Why is it 1 degree too warm? Is the calibration on the thermometers off? Did the receiver use the right technique? There's a million different reasons why. So you have what I call a yellow zone. There's a period in between. Now let's say it's from 41 to 45 degrees, where an investigation needs to take place. It's like, okay, well, why is the milk warm? Can we bring it in or not? Is it going to
Higher
maintain our
scrutiny.
quality? Yeah, you need
Yellow
to
means
figure that
higher
out.
scrutiny, but it doesn't mean it's all bad. Yeah.
Right. And so an investigation needs to take place to determine whether it's received or not. The other side of that's the red zone. Okay, if the milk is 45 degrees or warmer, no. We know that that's bad. We're going to have proteolytic enzymes. We're going to have bacterial growth. We're going to have quality program issues and complaints down the road. We don't want to bring that in. So you're making those decisions in advance and you're explaining why. If you don't have that yellow zone in the middle, guess what? It's still there. Because what will happen is the milk comes in at 41 and the plant still wants to bring it in because they know it's okay. So a big fight happens at that point.
And they're not wrong in thinking it's okay, because from a pragmatic standpoint, odds are it's going to be okay. Now, it's not. Yeah. I'm not saying it's okay to accept to accept the milk at 41 if the standard is 40. What I like about this example is when we say does it mean to be committed to food safety, specifically in a dairy at receiving, we know that if the milk comes in below 40, it's green. 40 to 45, it's yellow, and after 45, it's red. And if the plant manager, I love the idea of, okay, we've agreed to that ahead of time. And then if the plant manager says, well, I think we need to receive it anyways, or if management, doesn't have to be the plant manager, but if somebody says, I think we need to receive it anyways, then you just say, sure, let me just make a phone call. I'll call your boss and see what he thinks, and just have it approved for my records. And no, I think we're fine. I think we'll just reject it for this one time or something like that. It makes conversations so simple because we've done the work of figuring out, something that works for everybody. And if somebody says, well, I think 48 is good, well, then you duke that out in the conversations before the situation happens. And then you've got a chance to bring good science and you've got a risk assessment, and you say, you say, why is it that, how are we going to set that temperature between yellow and red? And really the point of a yellow zone is that you're helping people to we didn't change the spec to 45. We like, what we're saying is if you don't have a yellow zone, then like if it's as simple as green and like you want your spec to, well, I suppose you could say that you change the spec to 45. But that's not the point. That's not what we're trying to illustrate. So don't go running out and saying Alex said or Brian said that 45 is fine. That's not what we're saying. We're saying we need to work out what are we going to do when we're on the other side. And if you need to do some additional testing and yada yada yada, then there might be
Right. So this concept, right? So from my book back here, I talk about how you set these things up, and so we'll address this really quick. I don't want to get sidetracked on this though. Yeah. Is the standard with the milk co-op is still 40 degrees?
Yeah, exactly.
41 to 45 is a zone where we may accept it anyway. There's a conversation that's going to take place with that milk co-op. So the quality manager is going to be calling the milk co-op and saying, hey, as part of the investigation, why did you send us milk at 41 degrees? Oh, well, yeah, we had a bit of a problem with our cooling unit. The milk is all fresh. We've got it all fixed. This isn't going to happen again. Okay, great. We'll take it this time. If it's above 45, no, it's automatically rejected, right? The 41 to 44 gives you a zone to work within because you know from a quality standpoint, if things are correct through the investigation, right? Through the management investigation.
Through the additional testing and so on and so forth.
And let's say in this example that this co-op does this 2 or 3 times a month. Okay, well, guess what? I'm going to go have a meeting with them, or we're going to have a little bit of come to Jesus talk, right? Yeah. Because they're not meeting my spec and they are consistently failing to do so. They have a problem on their side. So no, the spec is still 40, right? Don't get confused by this. We can do a whole show.
It's an example. Don't get hung up with the example. We're talking about the need to. We're talking about the need to talk about things before. If the other
what I think is interesting here, though, too, is the comments, Alex, are identifying an issue we have in quality.
Yeah.
Is not everything is good, bad. There's in between, right?
Yeah.
That's what quality is for. Food safety is yes or no. Quality is a continuum, right? We need to figure that out, of what that continuum is. And the only point that we're bringing up on this was that there needs to be a decision-making process and evaluation for that continuum. Guess what? That's management. That's why we're here.
And we're not saying that quality has got to reduce their, like, we're not saying, oh, well, like on the quality side, we've got to take some, and on production side, they're coming in. We're saying it's a negotiation. So it's not just quality. It is purchasing also. It is, if we're going to, like, for example, this is just an example. We're not killing anybody right now. Like, we're just using that as an example. But if you say our standard is this, like, there's a yellow zone. When you get in the yellow, you do get into corrective actions with your suppliers.
Yes.
So it's not just quality. This is a trigger to say, okay, the supplier has got to do better, and we're going to put higher scrutiny, and then we're going to, like, we're not just going to approve the supplier once a year because they've got a good GFSI standard, but
all right. I think this discussion is really, really good for what we're talking about here from a management commitment standpoint. And this is why we fight with management in the plant. So a plant manager, another way to think of a plant manager, Alex, is he's like a doctor, right?
Yeah.
Their role is to figure out what the pain is, right? So you go to the doctor, and you say, I'm not feeling well. And then the doctor asks you a series of questions to diagnose you and figure out what the problem is, and then come up with a solution. Doctors are focused on pain. And if there's no pain, right, you don't go to the doctor when you feel well, right? It's, oh, no, things are good, right? So I'll see you later, doc. No, you're there for a very specific reason. And in this example, right, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but here, let's close out on this.
sure.
Is if, as the quality manager, you say our specification is 40, and anything above 40 gets automatically rejected, and that milk comes in one day at 41 and you reject it, he's really good. That plant manager is really going to be questioning your decision-making ability.
Well, they're going to be questioning your risk assessment. So I would say, okay, let's say the milk comes in and it's full of, like something happened and it's just full of metal. Okay, it's contaminated. Or let's say the milk comes in and it's full of, well, I mean, it's always full of bacteria, and that's kind of the issue there.
Let's say antibiotic. It tests positive for antibiotics.
It tests positive for antibiotics. So, like, the milk is clearly contaminated. It's clearly unsafe to eat. There's no doubt about that. Now, is milk at 41 degree unsafe to eat? Is it, like, temperature in this case is an indicator? It's not an indicator. It's really, really important. I'm not minimizing the importance, but it's a means that we have to evaluate whether, we know that if it's kept below 40, it's all good. But I mean, you know, when it comes out of, like, what's the temperature in English? In 38 degrees Celsius is the body temperature. Like, when it comes out of a cow, it's warm. You know, if the milk hasn't been refrigerated properly, like cooled, and is still fresh, it's going to be above the temperature. So it's not, you know, above the receiving temperature. So the situation is more, I suppose it illustrates very well that's what we're talking about, Cortland, is a pre-planned risk assessment. Like, we're talking about risk assessment. We're talking about pre-planning. We're talking about making sure that things are safe. We're not saying that there's any compromise on safety. That's absolutely not. But making sure that there's a conversation between quality and between the overall business is really important. And coming in and saying, well, no, I'm rejecting, and a hard-nosed approach is not always the most productive, I suppose, is what we're saying.
And we've seen this time and time again in our careers, is that if you take that approach as a quality manager, your career is going to be very painful and more than likely very short, because you're not going to be suited for that role. Very good comments here, guys, coming in. I think definitely at some point here, Alex,
I like it, but it's hard to keep up. Yeah,
it is. This is, I think, all right, guys, this is going to be a separate show. I'm going to do a complete show on this topic so that we can dive into that to get a better understanding of it. And this is absolutely fantastic, because this is a perfect illustration of the divide between the plant manager who's running a business and the quality manager who is enforcing a standard. Right?
I think this is paramount. Like, I think it's paramount. One of the things we're working on independently, so what we do is we do coaching, we do online training, but we also develop training for auditors, because I think one of the reasons why things are the way they are is because auditors come in and tick boxes, and they're not looking at effectiveness. So that's like, but management commitment is a huge issue, and management commitment is a huge issue, and risk assessment is another huge issue that I think we all need to be better trained. And I'm looking for, how can we define an area that we can all agree, we can all agree on those topics, and then we can train people on it. But I find that, like you, Brian, fascinating. Like, because I don't disagree with any of the comments, but at some point, like, how do we bring them together is the challenge. Like, I don't know if anybody. I think we're all here because we think things need to improve. I think we're all here because we all think we're not at the finish line yet. So
right.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and I think this is kind of relevant for the conversation here, is that one of the things that's very important in quality is that you have to be able to explain what you do. But the unspoken piece is you also have to be able to explain the things that you don't do, the dog not barking. Why did you set your program up the way that you did? And you have to be able to explain to that auditor. So, for example, we did a show recently on supplier management. You don't audit every single supplier exactly the same. To your point, Alex, you manage suppliers based on risk. So ready-to-eat ingredients, high-risk things, you're going to be looking at those much more closely than you would, let's say, salt or something that's going into your product that is very, very low risk. Same thing here. And I think part of what we need to understand in quality and getting, again, right? So our topic here for today is getting in the shoes of the plant manager to understand what's important to them, right? They're running a business. You're part of that business, and you need to be able to talk to them in their terms. Management commitment then is making sure that the plant manager understands that priority risk associated with these things. Let's take an example outside of quality. Let's look at safety, OSHA, right? So in the United States here, you have OSHA. And they have near misses. Right? And so, okay, a forklift is driving around in the warehouse and comes around a corner too fast and almost hits somebody and hurts them. Oh, okay, well, nothing happened, but it was a near miss. You're required to document that type of activities. And you need to then put corrective actions in place, because that's a warning signal, right? It hasn't actually happened yet. It's a yellow zone, but it could become a red zone very, very quickly if someone gets injured by this crazy forklift driver. So putting programs in place. And now the plant manager understands when the HR director comes to the plant manager and says, hey, Alex, yeah, what you got? Yeah, we almost had a forklift hit somebody in the warehouse today. Oh, what? Right? And now the plant manager, on his list of things that needs to be done that day, that's gone way up on the list, right? Because the plant manager understands the high risk associated with that and the prioritization with that. We need to do the same thing in quality, right? Hey, plant manager, here's some things that happened, and it's moving up in risk, and I'm concerned, and we need to start addressing this. It's a yellow zone, right? You need to start thinking about it. You need to view these things from the plant manager. What's important to the plant manager? So, for example, getting product out the door that meets standards and makes happy customers. Right? None of us get paid unless that works.
Nobody gets paid.
We don't make product.
When we say food safety is a priority, I think part of our vocabulary is very interesting. And I like the distinction between non-negotiable and a priority. Because when you say food safety is a priority, people are sort of saying, well, food safety is more important than selling. And we live in a capitalist, we live in a market economy, and it's saying that no unsafe food is going to get out of that door, whether we need to make money or not, is perfectly, makes perfect sense. But when you talk management, when you talk, and you say the plant manager, but I would say it just from kind of to the management team. It's not just the plant manager, it's the whole management team. Understanding that we need to understand their side of the story. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so this is the way I would always explain it to quality managers who work for me. There's three main buckets of information in a production facility. There's food safety, right? That's yes or no. There's no negotiation there. To your point, Alex, we have metal in the product. Food safety. No, everything's on hold. We're going to throw it
Unsafe.
away.
The food is clearly unsafe. Like we're not
Unsafe.
boop, 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 like that's dangerous.
Right.
It's contaminated.
Yeah, and your job as the quality manager, and the plant manager needs to understand this as well. Your job is to hold that line always and make sure that the plant manager can trust you to make sure that food safety is always respected and never, ever taken advantage of, right? Period. Everybody understands that. The next bucket that we're talking about here today, which is causing a lot of this discussion, which is good, is food quality. Food quality is a business decision. It's our job to provide the data to the plant manager so that they can make business decisions. Coffee, right? This cup of coffee, does it have the characteristics that the consumer wants so that they buy it? Does it have the right flavor? Does it have the right aroma? Is it not too bitter? Are those expectations being met, and how are we managing those in quality, right? Quality is in some ways external, right? What are those measurements that we're doing to reach those objectives? The third bucket is operational data. So that's everything else. So pounds per man hour, yield and efficiency, electrical consumption in the plant, base wage rates, all those type of things that the plant manager needs to run the plant. Great. That's them. That's not us. Right? We're concerned about those first two buckets. And I think a lot of times, Alex, and I think this is one of the key messages here for today, people confuse food safety and food quality. They are different.
But also people confuse unsafe and potentially unsafe. Because then, like, we need to make that distinction. Like, there's metal in the food. It's different than the metal detector was not working. Now, I'm not saying you got to release when the metal detector is not working. I'm saying if the detector is not working, the food is not unsafe. We don't know whether it's safe or not, and that is from a risk assessment perspective. It's a extremely important thing. And so, of course, when the food is unsafe, when it tests positive for antibiotics, when there's pathogens in ready-to-eat product, when it's a bit more complicated than that. But let's say when, well, just back to the listeria thing, it's but anyways. So if it tests positive for antibiotics, if something's above a safe threshold, then it's unsafe. It's clearly unsafe. If we don't know whether it's safe or not, it's a different bucket when we do risk assessment. I'm not saying we should release. I'm saying if we want to convince management that this product is not good, just saying, well, it's possibly unsafe, and from a quality standpoint, it's not good, and we should it's not a super convincing. Unlike there's metal in there, we're going to injure people. That's pretty convincing.
Right. And that needs to be very clearly communicated. So part of this is when you're on the quality side, and with that framework here, guys, and thank you for the comment, Tim. I appreciate that. Hopefully this is making sense to everybody. Is your job is to, when you're working in the quality side, and the analogy I like to use here is the plant manager is a pirate, and you're the parrot sitting on the shoulder of the plant manager, and it's your job to give them information, right? When things are not going in the correct direction. Oh, complaints are going up. I'm a little worried. Complaints are going up, right? Your job is to work with the plant manager to help them understand the prioritization, right? Because the plant manager has you. He has the maintenance manager, the HR manager, the operations manager, all of these different people who are all vying for his attention in that plant, right? We're all there for the same reason, to make good product that people love, that is safe, and we can make money. Your job on the quality side is to fit within that framework as part of the management team and do a good job of communicating that information to the plant manager so he understands when things are bad or going in a bad direction, or when things are being monitored or things are good, right? That's what you're there for, to provide information the same as any other manager within that facility. So how are you doing that? You need to do that by understanding what is important to that plant manager. And if you fail to do that, you're going to fail in your job, period. They're going to find somebody else, guaranteed. So
one of the things, like, I don't want to give the wrong impression. I'm not, like, part of what I think needs to be part of those conversations is to push a higher level of accountability on the different managers. Because when you say, oh, you're the kind of the angel devil talking about complaints, I don't believe complaints belong to quality. I think complaints belong to production. Like, who's actually making the product, or who's actually making the mistake, and they should be the ones owning those. And as a quality, you're reporting on that. I'm seeing that, but it's not it's not your fault from a quality standpoint. From a maintenance standpoint, if there's metal in the product, like the ingredients came in, they were all good, and at the end of the product, the production, kind of metal has been added. Well, odds are it's a maintenance issue. It's not it's a food safety issue, of course, but who owns that issue? Who owns the ability of making sure there's no metal in the product? It's maintenance. Now, quality can monitor for that. Production can monitor for that, but it needs to, part of that conversation needs to be pushing more responsibility so that every one of those managers can have KPIs. We were talking about KPIs. What kind of KPI should a maintenance manager or a maintenance department deliver in terms of food safety? I think there should be some metrics for all department, and that's part of those negotiations, I think.
Right. And so Cortland, I like how Cortland is phrasing this. Thank you. Right. So you have to think about the product quality, right? We're only talking quality here. Repurchased by the consumer. Absolutely 100%. And that's what we're talking about, is that's management commitment. And so part of this, right, is we get stuck inside our bubble. Yeah. And we're doing all of this so that when I pick up this cup of coffee, I go, damn, that's a good cup of coffee. I'm going to buy more. Because it's amazing
by now.
Right. And as a quality manager in a company, I need to understand those metrics, and I need that information through complaints and other types of things so that I can communicate that information. We're going off we're starting to drift, right? I'm getting more complaints in our systems that say the coffee is bitter. We need to start corrective actions or an investigation or work with purchasing. To your point, Alex, in quality, we're the monitors, right? We're working with these other groups to fix these things. So let's say in that example that procurement bought some off-spec coffee beans that had flavor defects, but man, they got a great price on it. Well, okay, that was a bad decision, right? Let's don't do that again. So, and I think part of the issue here, right, and this is why we're having such a great conversation around this, is that this is an abstract concept. There are many ways to reach the top of the mountain and many ways that you can structure how you communicate this information and how you work together as a team in the plant to reach your goals and your objectives for food safety, quality, and operations, right? How do you do that? And that's what the auditor should be asking. So part of that, again, back to our topic here for today, is how do I change around my chair and understand this from the perspective of the plant manager? How do I do that? So like there was an example I put together here that may help with this. I don't know. We'll see. Is you need to think of this in terms of persuasion. It's like, okay, I'm the quality manager and you're the plant manager, Alex. And let's say that I want to improve my micro testing. My current method is, it's kind of okay. There's some better methods out there that I want, but they're more expensive. So the plant manager who's responsible for the budget for the plant is going to challenge that. It's like, okay, if I go to the plant manager and I say, I want a new micro test because it's really super cool, the plant manager is going to say, okay, well, is our base method working? Well, yeah, it works. How much is that per test? Well, that's $1.50 per test. Okay, great. What's the new method cost per test? Well, it's $3 per test, but it's really cool. Denied, right? That's not going to happen, right? You have to look at it from their perspective.
That's nothing to do with a commitment to food safety. Like that is not a commitment to food safety. Everybody should have to justify their expenses in the same way. And I think,
Well, I mean, in this example,
if you make a good sales pitch, then
Right. So the perspective on this that you need to take is, okay, what does the plant man, before you even meet with the plant manager, is what does the plant manager want? The plant manager in this example wants faster product release, right? They don't want the product sitting in the warehouse for 5 days while you're waiting for the micro results. They want to get that product out so that they can sell it and get cash flow. So, okay, I am now going to present this to the plant manager as an improvement in product release times. Hey, good news, plant manager. There's a new methodology in micro that allows me to release the product in 3 days instead of 5 days, which means that we're able to turn around our product 60% faster, which means that my cost in the warehouse for the company now is going to be $600,000 less a year. Can I do that? Oh yeah, you can do that. When can we get it started?
I'll give you $10.
Right? Why didn't we start doing this last year? Why are we waiting so long? Get that done. And that's a real world example. That's how I got rapid methodologies approved in a company in the past. because it costs more per test for rapid methods, but it saved money for the company overall. Talk their language, right?
Yeah.
Budget.
And I think earlier we were saying, like, is it the role of quality to teach management? In a way, it's the role of quality to learn to speak the same language when we're pitching for something. What you're describing is Brian speaking management, speaking just business management, rather than coming in with my quality hat. Yeah, it's a quality hat, but you're in a meeting with a bunch of managers, so you've got to speak their language.
Right.
And it's very different. Like, it's very easy to say, oh, they said no, so they're not qual. I suppose my big point is, saying no doesn't demonstrate necessarily a lack of commitment. I'm not saying management couldn't be more committed. I see the same thing as everybody else.
I mean, there are a few people you will meet in the world, Alex, who are more committed than plant managers, right? If you're in a large plant, they live there, right? They're there 60, 70 hours, 80 hours a week or more. They're showing up on off shifts. They're showing on the weekend. They're essentially married to that plant in order to make it successful.
Yeah,
I have extreme respect for plant managers. It's a very, very difficult job. And the ones who do it well are gold. And your job as the quality manager is to support your plant manager. And if you do a good job of that, they're going to respect you and give you what you need, right? Reciprocity is extremely important.
And sometimes some things are going to be more expensive, and you're not gonna be able to justify everything through money savings. Like, it's not always the case, but having to justify or having to sell your initiatives is always going to be the case. Like, that's
right. Oh, I love it. That's perfect phrasing, Alex. Thank you. We have to become salesmen. You may not like to hear that. Everybody's a salesman, right? We've talked about this on chat recently when we were talking about persuasion. And guess what? We're talking about persuasion right now. Yeah. If you think that simply putting together a quality report and sending out an email with the quality report to the management team once a month, oh, okay, I've done my job. No, you have not.
Righteousness doesn't work. Like, we've tried it, we've tried the right and wanting to do the right thing is extremely important, but that's not how you convince people. So righteousness is like, the first bit is like, okay, I want to do that. This is the right thing. I'm doing everything I can to understand what the right thing is and making a good plan and all that. But from here on, it becomes sales. The question I'm leaving with, because I'm conscious that we're I'm thinking, like, for me, I like the idea of, like, looking at, like, like you're doing another podcast on this thing here. What I'm going to be leaving with, I'm looking at maybe a question for everybody. What would be the best path to create clarity on what food safety means with a management team? I'm very keen, and what I'm going to be working on, I'm going to kind of spoiler mine is, I'm going to look at KPIs. I've been looking at KPIs for a long time, and that's kind of the path that I'm going to look at. But what would you do, Brian? Like, what's your path?
Well, one of the things that I always advise on relative to reporting is, don't waste a lot of time looking backwards, right? If you issue a quality report, we'll use an extreme example. Let's say that you have a quality report that you do quarterly. Who cares? Old news, right? Who cares? What can you use for that information to extrapolate into the future? That's what the plant manager cares about, right? So back to I like Duncan's analogy, right? The devil and the angel on your shoulders is you need to be able to talk to the plant manager and say, we're starting to see a trend for complaints from the consumer affairs group that is trending in a direction that's not good. We're still okay. We're still below our targets, but we need to get this thing under control and bring it back down. I'm going to start an investigation and put together a team to figure it out. Right?
Yeah. Data-driven decisions. Data-driven decisions works with KPIs or with metrics. Like, we're back to back to that.
And so your point, we're kind of getting to the 5-minute mark here. So I wanted to kind of summarize this too. So here's a really good way to think about this is, and one of the things that I always preach, and everybody's probably heard me talk about this on the chat, is you need to be able to tell your story. So for example, Alex, let's say that you're the auditor coming in and I'm the quality manager. And you say to me, okay, Brian, let's begin going over some things. I would like to start with management commitment. Can you please explain to me how you address management commitment? Right? Then you sit back and you listen to see what I have to say. And of course, you're going to be looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, plan, do, check, act. What are your processes? How do you manage those? What evidence do you have that you did that? And how do you then get back on course for those type of things? Here's how I would address that question based upon the elements of 1 through 4 of management commitment that we started this conversation with. Well, Mr. Hanley, I'm really happy that you brought that up. We really address management commitment in 4 different areas associated with our facility. Of course, the first is safe food. And we have programs in place through our food safety plans and our preventive controls for the management of safe food. We have robust supplier control systems in place where we go out based upon risk within our company, and we only use the best sources. All information and all materials coming into the facility are reviewed prior to use, and we make sure that food is always safe for our consumers. And we have these checks, The next thing that we do is our culture. And here are the different things in our company that we do to create management culture around food safety and how we communicate that information within our facility. We have review boards. We have areas where we have verbatims from consumers where we let our public know within our plant how these things are being managed. We're always constantly communicating that information. And I encourage you, when we're on the floor, to talk to team members and ask around these type of things to see if what I'm telling you is true. The next is continuous improvement. We have a meeting that does and we always make sure that we comply with regulatory compliance and make sure that we're on top of all the latest trends. So every week I attend a live stream online called the Food Safety Chat, where we get the latest information on food safety. And we bring in experts.
Sales pitch there, Brian.
Right. And so I'm explaining to you how we do those things. And I'm doing it in a way that then leads you to those things that I want you to investigate. Right?
Yeah.
And then you can then bring that back around and say, oh, okay, I understand now how they're managing food safety culture in this facility. Right? That's your job. You're the ambassador through this process, right? And it's your job to lead the auditor and show them how you meet the requirements and how you're meeting these type of things. And it's not, well, Mr. Hanley, I'm glad you're in my facility. Here is our procedure on the management commitment in our plant.
Yeah, read my piece of paper here. It's all written there.
No. The shameless plug. Yes, it was, wasn't it? Wasn't that awful?
Well, I don't know if there was any shame, but it definitely was a plug anyways.
Well, and I remember back early in my career, Alex, that was an important point for me. I was a brand new director in charge of quality for a company, and I had a very, very good auditor. And so he retired from Kraft, and he wrote their HACCP plans for Kraft. Extremely knowledgeable man. And I was fortunate to get to meet him. And he asked me during the audit, he's like, okay, well, Brian, I see your programs here. Please explain to me how you keep up on the latest trends and issues in food safety, and how do you communicate that within your organization? Oh, shit. That's a really good question. I should be doing that, shouldn't I? Yes, you should, Brian. That started all of this. What you're seeing right now is a direct result of that 20 years ago.
Yeah, I find that one super interesting because when I was talking about like that line, I mean, I'm an auditor. I've asked that question 100 times. One of the difficulty for the auditor is they say you need to have a system, you need to have a process, you need to have something, but it seems like there's not really any line that says, okay, if you do that, you're compliant, and if you don't do, like, where's the line that defines non-compliance? And yeah,
it's like Larry said here, show me.
Yeah, show me. Show me what.
And so, wow, good chat, right? So I love it, Alex, when we can have these frank, open discussions, because part of the problem in what we do in food safety and food quality is we're locked away in our company. We only have our internal frame of reference and we try and wrestle this to the ground ourselves, and that's really hard. Don't do that. Right? Get advice and figure out these things from other people who have been through that pain. And I've seen it in my career. I'm sure you've seen this too, Alex, a million times. where quality people will just absolutely burn out, beating their heads against the wall because they take the wrong approaches.
Yeah, and it seems like we've barely scratched the surface. I mean, scratching like clearly shows there's an itch there,
Yes.
but yeah, well, we all have to jump off.
Yes, it's already, our time is already up. So with that, thank you, everybody. Wow, these conversations are absolutely amazing. And again, guys, we're here for you. So hopefully we've given you a couple things to think about here today. Take this information and digest it, and say, how does this apply to what I do? That's what we're here for. So with that, we're going to bring our chat to a close. And Alex, thank you. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. It was fantastic.
Oh, wonderful. Your expertise is greatly appreciated. So with that, guys, we're going to close out our chat here for this week. And of course, we'll be back here next week at the same time on Friday, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, where we live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. Don't do X anymore. So we'll bring on another amazing expert like Alex to talk about these topics that are all very important to us. So think about this, but enjoy your weekend. Have a great time. It's a wonderful time of year, and we'll do it all again next week. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you then. Bye, Alex.
Have a great weekend.